Oh, here we're starting. All right, there we go. That's how we're
We're
doing
live.
this, I guess.
Yes, I
Um,
guess we're live.
you got trades over right now. You're saying that you got to manage.
Yeah, I was doubling down on United Healthcare, and I use Thinkorswim, and I started using Centerpoint,
Yeah.
um, and I was messing with the L2, trying to pump my position up. Oh, there you go. They just canceled out the trades. Okay, cool.
All
I
right,
was like,
sweet.
there's
All
no
right,
way.
now you can focus.
Yeah, we're good now. I was like, there's no way I'm going into the weekend with that on the books. Okay, we're good now.
Right, right. Good. I like it, man. Well, dude, I'm super appreciate you doing this, hopping on, especially, I mean, we're gonna talk about, all the things you got going on in your life, but you got a busy life. You got a lot happening. So yeah, really appreciate you hopping on here, man. This is gonna be fun.
That is an understatement. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Of course.
Yeah, of course, dude. Of course. I mean, I always kind of like to start with just like the origin story, the background, where'd you grow up? Like what's like give the story for people who like who's the human behind the handle? Where'd you come from? All that.
So originally, I'm from Compton, California.
Okay.
Just grew out without a cent. Then moved out to Arizona at my middle teens, I guess you can say, and never looked back, man. I never looked back. I love Arizona. I have a family now. I have a spouse, and I have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. One was born last month, which I'll
Congratulations.
thank you, which I'll never
Can we
forget.
tell can we tell the audience how the age of these children just so they understand what's going on?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Coach Ranchero always likes to give me shit because I'm not on my desk when the bell rings, or I'm doing something right. So my eldest is 4, girl, and then my second child is a boy. He's 3. And I got my third daughter. Well, my third child it's a girl, and she is going on 2 here in like a month or so.
Yeah.
And then I got a 1 month-year-old. He was born April 2nd.
Wow, bro. Congratulations, man. That is
Yeah.
I have a 17-month-old, right? I'm the loser who actually says the exact number of months, right? I have one kid, and that's a handful. 4 kids under 5, like I just tip my hat to you, man. That's a whole different ball game.
And the oldest goes to school, right? So sometimes I'm at home when the bell rings, and the summer is good because it's 6:30 when the bell rings my time in Arizona.
Right.
In the wintertime, it's 7:30, we have to be out the door no later than 8:05, right?
Yep.
Um, so if I put a big position on it, it's a little nerve wracking. It sometimes is a happy day driving to school, and sometimes it's like, hey, let's just relax our mind, baby girl. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's just go ahead and listen to this song, and let's just stay in our seats, and you know. And some days it's like, you're on top of the world driving to school. You're like, I wonder why dad's so happy.
Life with a trader in the family, man. I know well. That was my life growing up too.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's a blessing when they sleep like an hour, like an hour extra. My 3 youngest, or my 2 youngest,
yeah.
because it's like, okay, cool. Typically they wake up and they rush to dad. Dad, what are you doing? Dad, what are you doing? What? Well, I'll have a big trade in place, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's they know it's like, hey, just stay out of the office.
What's dad doing now? He's sweating bullets. Okay. What else do you want to know? Don't talk to me right now, kid.
Leave him alone, all right? You can just
Right.
hear
Right.
mom, get out of there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Okay, so yeah, obviously you moved to Arizona, you got your family there, and then, you've talked about in the room your mortgages, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're in the mortgage business. That's been sort of your day job, if you want to call it that. But you've been trading for a bit, right? I mean, when did you first start getting involved in the markets?
So I started getting involved with the markets, and it really just depends on what you call involved, right? I had a dream that I would trade stocks, and I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, I think I was like 19 at the time. I'm 30 now, and I think I was like 19 at the time. I was like, oh, I had a dream, and then it was kind of like nothing, and then like a month later, Wolf of Wall Street came out,
Okay.
and I didn't know what it was, right? Like I had no idea what the market was, and I was like, oh, this, Leo is actually one of my favorite characters there is, like acting and what, not character actors. I was
Right.
like, oh, let's go. We watched the movie and I was like, oh shit, like that's what the stock market's about. Like, I was like, damn, you can make that much money doing that. And you got to keep in mind, right? I originally from Compton, it's pretty much 99% of the city is below poverty line, right?
Right.
So, that's what got me intrigued. I was like, maybe it's a sign. So, I think at the time, I believe what was I doing at the time? I think I was working at a pawn shop doing auto title loans or something like that. And I accumulated about 10 grand. And I started I opened up a TD Ameritrade account. I started trading, and then the marijuana boom happened,
Mm.
right? And I won't always remember like what are my best trades. I always remember what like my worst trades are.
Yep.
Um, I started trading at the time. I believe I was unemployed at 10,000. I was like, well, I got to make it work. I grabbed 10,000 and I turned it at 100 grand over the course of like 3 weeks. Um,
Woo.
yeah, trading marijuana stocks. It was 2014, I believe, is the year 2014, 2013.
Right.
And at this time, I was maybe 21, 22, and it was crazy to say, like, eventually I did lose all that money. And I remember the exact stock. It was Mine. I lost all my money on that stock. And that was that for me for like the next 2 years. And I probably blew my accounts maybe 6 times, 7 times at this point.
Yeah.
Uh, and it hasn't been to where I'm at now in terms of size wise. It's always
Right.
been, like, 30,000, 40,000. At one point I took out a personal loan to day trade. Rest assured, I blew that one up.
Damn. That's
I blew
tough.
that shit up. It was like 35 grand loan.
Yeah.
Um, I blew that account up, and it was always trading with hope. I was always
Mm.
trading on hopes and dreams, like, oh, hopes and dreams, hopes. It was never based on data or based
Yeah.
on an actual. You'll see a penny stock, you're like, oh, this penny stock is doing this. Oh, this is the next big thing, and boom, all in.
Right.
Tomorrow comes 50%. The account's down 50%, but
Right.
that's pretty much where I got my day trading from. It was a dream. The Wolf of Wall Street came out, and I'm like, why not? Let's just give it a try.
Right.
So
Right.
now things have, uh, for lack of better words, have turned around for me for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, I almost want to force fast forward to that. So, I mean, how long have you been in the room, in the steam room? Like a
So
year?
I, I'll tell you how I came about the Steamroom.
Yeah.
So I've always been like on Twitter. I never don't really use it for like social stuff. I've always used it for kind of like my news. That's kind of where I got my news from, Twitter, right? You
Yeah.
enter up, the money sign, you enter the stock, and boom, you get a bunch of crap in it.
Right.
And I tend to see, Jesus post a lot. This was back in maybe 2016, 2015. I'm like, God damn. So what I didn't know about options, right? I didn't learn about options. So, we'll get to that part. But, I was like, well, damn, it's still confusing to me how options work.
Mm.
But I saw Jesus and I'm like, oh, I signed up for it. And I signed up, didn't use it. I blew up an account essentially at that point. Um, but I didn't really become a member of what I like to say the tribe up until I think last year in October ish,
Yep.
September, October, November. Around that time is when I was like, you know what? Let me pay my $8 2-week trial. Let me get some information and see what I can do.
Yeah.
And then like I didn't really use it again. I logged in. I'm like, again, it was just didn't know what I was looking at. And then I got an alert from American Express. They're like, hey, we charged you whatever amount it was. And I'm like, oh shit, I really got to use it now. And it's probably the best. It's probably the best thing that could have happened to me outside the birth of my child in the
Right.
last 7 months. In the last 7 months,
Damn.
like just being charged that amount, I was like, dude, like looking back on it, you're like, fuck yeah, man. Like, and then I became, I got my annual membership probably like 2 months later.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I've really been a Steam member about 7 months, 8 months, give or take.
That's about when I remember you popping up because I'm, Norris and the guys, like I'm not in the room every single day, but I'm always kind of
In the
floating
back.
around, whatever, in the back lurking, and Norris and those guys were like, yo, there's this guy Ozzy, man. Like he's new, and especially as like the fall came around and going into the winter, they're like, this guy is like taking on like massive size. And someone was like, oh, I think he's like completely new. Like he's new to trading. And then Norris was like, no. He's been trading for a while. He's new to like us, our style. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like maybe you came in and things started clicking in a way. Like what was the journey there? Like what happened? You started putting
So
some of the
I've
pieces
never.
together?
This is the longest, as you can see, probably like a month ago. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna when my son was born, I was like, hey, I'm gonna hang it up, and
Yeah.
just kind of go on about my life, what I was doing before I joined you guys, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that didn't work out, and in terms of we'll get to that part, but
If you're
this
making that
is the
kind of money,
longest.
it's kind of hard to walk away from, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to walk away from those type of gains, and that's probably the worst thing I could have done, and we'll go into why that was. Um, so this is the longest time I've traded actively, right? Because by this time I should have already blown up, or I would have already taken a massive loss to where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna chill out, right? Like
Right.
I don't want to do this no more.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but this is the longest time. I've always traded for a couple months before blowing up, and the steam room, man, it just, dude, like Ranchero, man, like the way that guy talks about how you should kind of trade or why not take a trade, etc., etc. It's crazy, man. Like you don't, if I've been part of others chat rooms, and like you can't say shit, right? You really, like, they don't know, like they're very strict on what you can say and what you cannot say. And in
Right.
the steam room is like, you're trading base. We're trading based on data. We're
Yeah.
not trading based on a PR. We're not trading based on what someone on Twitter said. We're trading based on what people are betting on. You're looking at what people are betting on, how much they're betting, by when. That's what we're trading based off of, and that's the best way to trade, or at least that's the best way I've have been successful, is trading based on what someone else is trading on. Not necessarily chasing, but if someone's betting, that Nike is going to go to $80 based on earnings next week, and they're willing to bet 700,000, is like, I'm down for that. Like, let's go. Like, I don't like to lose, and I don't like to win alone, right? So if I'm gonna win, we're gonna win together, and if we lose, you lost more than me. Like,
Right. Right. Riding the coattails of the bigger players, right? I mean, yeah, that's the whole name of the game, right?
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you came in and it sounds like you were saying, all right, there's like a much more sort of like coherent methodology here. There's more strategy here than, kind of what you using before. And then it seems like relatively quickly you started taking on some pretty big trades, like, numbers that were
Yeah,
pretty fucking big.
yeah. So I think I forgot how much money I made that day, but I think it was like 50 grand. And I'll never forget this gentleman. It was like Friday the 13th. I haven't seen him since that day, but he was like, "Oh, those are paper gains," and I'm like, dude, I just took on some pretty heavy risk for someone to say that it's paper,
Right.
and that kind of gave me a chip on my shoulder. So then, I'm in the chat room a little bit more, and then you start hearing Ranchero. I don't think he had breakfast that morning, and he goes like, "You need a," he's like, "Why don't you roll? Why don't you, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" And at first, I'm like, this guy's crazy. Right. But then I started asking him questions. I'm like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? And I think my first option trade, because I didn't start trading options to about five months ago, 5 months ago
Okay.
or so, like late
Okay.
December.
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the worst trades I've made. But I was already, I was already making some money, like a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And I think I bet like 75 grand that Apple would drop $6 in the matter of 3 days.
Didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so, I lost a lot of money when I first started trading options.
Yeah.
I did start losing a lot of money because I was riding on hopes and dreams, right? I wasn't betting on what someone else was betting, right? I was just like, oh, this stock is gonna do this by this date. Let's go. 100 grand bet, 200
Right.
grand. And it was never a 200 grand bet at that size because I didn't really start sizing in options. I've always sized in terms of stock because it doesn't move as fast, right? You can't just lose all your money. It's a lot harder to lose all your money or to your shares to be worthless, I guess.
Right.
Um, so I didn't start trading size up into about 6 months ago in the options when I hit big. What stock was it? Was it Nike? Yeah, I think it was Nike. I think it had earnings in December or January. We took that bad boy for a ride. We so people come in and place these type of bets that are unusual right before earnings, right? They'll go and bet 500,000 on it dropping $10.
Right.
The hell do you know, right?
Right.
And a lot of the times is now that I've learned is a lot of times they're just protecting their shares. They're protecting downside.
Right.
But when you start seeing, like Jesus post like, hey, this, with the trade alerts, right? I always ask for the trade alerts, like, hey, give me the top bets, and I'll every time I went into option earnings without looking at the trade alerts that Jesus provided, or if Jesus is busy doing something and he don't have the time to provide it. At this point I should have my own account and search it myself. But every time I've made a bet based off of not based on trade alert, I always lose every single time. Boom.
Mm.
They end up becoming worthless and whatnot.
Right.
So it is, if you're going to trade, you got to do it based on data, hardcore data. That's where I've been successful.
Right. Right. Okay. So then you're in the room, you're starting to size up, starting to make, decent chunk of change. And then, seven figure trades, right? I mean, you had a couple months there where you're literally taking down millions, which I mean, for anybody, that's insane. I got to think for somebody who's blown up accounts or whatever, who sounds like you didn't grow up around a lot of money. I mean, what does that do to your head when you're looking at that number
So
in your bank account?
let's be clear on one thing, that even when it was happening, I'm like, I don't know what's happening, guys. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, right? And we can touch on the side. We can, I was just betting huge based on trade alert. You can always ask me, peppering Jesus all day. Hey, give me the top bets for someone that has earnings in the afternoon or someone that has earnings on tomorrow morning. I think it was where I had my big break because I made a bunch of money in March, which like changed my life, right? That's my life. I mean, I worked so hard to be where I'm at, but that kind of just took it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I think it was, what stock was it? I think it was CrowdStrike. I went long CrowdStrike. Oh no, it was Palo Alto. I took it short. I think I put $100,000 in an options trade, and it dropped like $90. It was like that when it had that big drop. Like I bet like it was I was protective on that bet, in terms of what strike I was going for. But my options were so deep in the money to where like they had to pay me. I think it was $100,000 option trade. I think profit on it, like net profit, I believe it was 600,000 overnight. I was stuck in traffic, gonna go pick up some carpet. And I was like, like, let me just place this bet. I bet 100,000 because I think that the day
God, you're
previous.
doing this from your phone.
Yeah, so Palo Alto was off my phone.
Damn, you're fucking nuts, man.
So Palo Alto was off my phone. I placed 100,000. Boom, 90. It dropped 90 grand. It dropped $90. I think I net profit 600 grand. But one of the things I was doing at the time was, if I made 200 grand the day before and I was going to go into an earnings play, I took it from Ranchero and from Lucci, where they're like, two things they always say is take some of the profit and roll something, or don't use the whole money you just made and use some of it, and let's see if you hit again. And then one of the things I learned, and to like my fifth option trade, Lucci is like, you got to buy time on this stuff. Like you're buying, like, I like the idea, I like the price targets, but you're not buying yourself time.
Yeah.
So then I integrated that into how I started trading. And with Palo Alto, I already had made like 100, 200 grand that day. And I was like, if I lose half of the money I made today. Big
Mhm.
fucking deal, right? It is what
Mhm.
it is. Looking at it back from today, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing in March? I was numb to what was going on, right?
Mm.
Then that trade occurred, and then CrossStrike rolled around. On that one, it was in options. It was stock, and I went like, I don't know. I think it was 12,000 shares long. And in the month of March, I don't think I slept. Not because I drink, not because I do drugs, because that's how much size I was moving. I was moving like fucking size.
Yeah.
Um, and so for CrossStrike was an interesting one. I went long 13,000 shares, and prior to earnings, I think it tanked like $10, dude, $8, something like that. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll hold into earnings. I feel good about it based on the trade alerts that Jesus posted. I think someone shorted like some calls for like 1.5 million. You short calls going into earnings, you fucking know something. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
you know something. Like you just don't short $1.5 million in calls if you're not certain about something. Because the amount of money you can lose shorting is you don't you don't limit your loss to 1.5 million.
Right.
You can lose that can 1.5 can turn into 150 million, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable going into earnings. I couldn't stay up to earnings. I crashed out, and Hellman texted me. He said, "Nice hit on CrossStrike. You were long, right?" And I woke up and I'm like, "Yeah, I was long." And I opened up my mobile app. I was like, "Shit was up $60." Dude, I just run to my office, sell, 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 and I think it went up like $10 more or so, and then it eventually did what it did. But yeah, I think on that trade, I think it was like a $700,000 gain. And there was, and this is like, Palo Alto had earnings. I shorted that, and then I'm like, I'm going long CrossStrike. Like, who the fuck does? It was, again, I was numb to the fact that I already had made money. So I'm like, if I lose, I'm okay losing that. And that's
Mhm.
something that, Ranchero preaches all the time is like, hey, why don't you get some of the gains and roll a little bit? Just roll a little, just keep rolling. And I told myself, I'm gonna keep rolling. I'm gonna keep rolling until this shit bursts. And Jesus was like, dude, you're gonna get pinched. I'm like, I'm okay if I get pinched. If I get pinched 10% from the highs of my account, I'm okay
Right.
with that. I'm
You've
okay
taken
with
so much off the table at this point already. You're like, come on, this is
like
all house
I'm
money. Like, let's do this. Yeah.
like, let's keep rolling, let's keep rolling.
Right.
So that is essentially what happened. And I think the month of March, I'd have to confirm 100%, but I believe it was either 2.6, 2.7 million,
It's a
in,
shitload of money.
in net gains, right? But to be fair, you know, why I started trading was because I had given my money to Goldman Sachs. There was a financial advisors. I gave it to
Mhm.
him in 2022, at the beginning of 2022. Prior to giving him my money, I think I lost like 700,000 on Meta earnings. So if you go back to 2021, late in the year, you look at whenever earnings was for Meta, and they just tanked like $40. So I
Right.
lost a huge money there. And then Goldman Sachs. I thought, oh, I'll give my money to Goldman Sachs. They'll make me money. Why? I mean, they're
That's
Goldman
what they
Sachs.
do. It's Goldman, right? I mean, come on.
Goldman. That's what they do.
Right.
So they went on to lose me about 800 grand. So I was already in the whole 1.5,
Mm.
trading. So I was like, fuck, at this point, even my spouse was like, you sure you got this? I didn't believe myself. She believed in me, but I didn't. And we went on and did that, and even prior to the months leading up to that, it was we're still making six figures net per month. But I think my big break was in March, man. Just options, like when people started, I forgot who it was. When I think it was, I don't know if I forgot who it was, man. I don't even want to say names, but they're like, why don't you trade options? I was like, I don't know how to. I don't know. And then, slowly they're like, this is how you trade options.
Right.
Oh, it was Ranchero. Ranchero. So he's like, why don't you trade options? Like, you limit your downside and your upside is unlimited. I mean, it's limited to some degree, but it's really unlimited. So I'm like, sure. And then that's when I placed that Apple trade, and
Yeah.
I lost.
Tough first trade.
My
I
first
mean,
trade was bad, and after
yeah.
that, yeah, we can look back and be like, we did okay.
Yeah. Absolutely you can. Okay. So that's March. That's the craziness. And then it sounds like, he's got April sounds like an insane month. Like not just from trading, but just in your life too. Right. I mean,
So there was in April there was upside and downside. So April was I always lose a lot of money when I trade and I have something going on that day. So like if I have to go to my daughter's school, I don't know
mhm.
what it is, or if I have to do anything right and I place a trade before that event, like I always
Dude,
lose
this is
a
so common. This is
lot.
everybody, man.
I
Everybody's like
always
this.
lose money, like, and it's bad, like it's guaranteed, right?
Yeah.
So I'm writing a high. You got to keep in mind that in March, like I made the market my bitch. Like, excuse my language, but dude, like I made all the money I ever lost in my life. Now I'm positive, net gains, 7 figures up there. Um, my son, we go into labor. What did I long that day? It was Meta. It was Meta before the recent drop. I think I was short Meta 17,000 shares of some nature. And then it spiked up $10 and I covered. I'm like, okay, my son's literally about to be born.
Yeah.
Um, I can't trade no more.
Right.
So I covered, and it was like $3 from the all-time high, right? Because then we know what happened to Meta. We know where Meta's at now. So the idea was good, timing wasn't. And then my son's born. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna trade today. We're good. He's born. I'm like, let's just trade Tesla one more time. Because you know what I mean? Like,
Funny how that happens. Maybe just a little something. Just, celebrate.
Let's just get in there, right? So then I didn't know, but Tesla was announcing, I think, their delivery numbers in April. So it didn't go, it didn't work out. I think over my son was born, and those 48 hours of my son being born, I think I lost like $700,000. Yeah. $700,000 is what I
Be
lost.
a great story for him someday when you're like, hey,
Yeah. So
buddy.
like all my kids, like all my 4 kids, man, there's like a special event that always happens before they're born. Like every single my child, like they have something. Whether it's career wise, right? Because I still run a mortgage business, right? Outside of me doing all the trading, I still run a mortgage business at the end of the day.
Right.
So he was born, and I was like, you know what, I can kind of retire, right? I thought of retirement. I said my thank you to everyone in the room. Like, hey,
I know you sent this message. You were like, I mean, for everybody who doesn't know, if you're watching this, like Ozzy, he's transparent. He posts his gains, he posts his losses, and he posted gains of like the numbers he was talking about, shitload of money. And then a couple days later, a week later, he sent a message to the room that was basically just like, guys, I'm out. It's been great. I love you guys. Thanks for all the help. I'm out. I'm done. I'm retired. I'm going off into the sunset. And we were all like, all right. Obviously you see that happen sometimes, but it was like, oh shit, he's out,
there's not a lot of happy endings, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that just keep rolling the dice, and and I was like, I'm just gonna call my bank up, and pay off anybody I owe money to, and just kind of chill, right? And I did, and it's probably like the first time I got an actual sleep, because it got into the point where I would wake up at 1 a.m. to short something.
Yeah.
Like what? Like, dude, you just take a break. And my spouse, she's a warrior, man. Like I can't sit here and tell you she likes when I trade, because the emotions of a trader is right. But she supported it. She's like, oh, what? Like, and I didn't really tell her how much money I was making until like the very end of March. I'm like, this is how much we made. And she was like, wow, that's crazy. And there's a lot of people in the room that provide a lot of value, right? You have like Silvers, you have like Kelly, then you have Ranchero, you got Lucci. Like, some of those things that they tell you, they just stick with you, right? And Jesus was like, and like before I had that big loss, I think Jesus was like, hey man, you gotta, like 2 weeks prior, he's like, you gotta chill out. It's like, dude, I'm gonna get clipped. When I get clipped, I'm gonna hang out, and I did hang out for 2-3 weeks, and I'm like, all right, I'm back. Let's go.
And then you came back. Yeah.
Yeah, we're back. And
retired for 2 weeks and then take it off the shelf. Yeah.
Because you can't walk away from that. Like, it was so easy to me. Like, it's like I'll give you an example, right? A wise guy alert came out yesterday, right before earnings on Frog, FROG. Someone bet $400,000 that it was going to drop. They took the 37.50 put for next week, 400 grand that it's going to drop. Based on the premium that they pay, that it was going to drop $5, 15% at least.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Silvers looked at it. We're like, look at that trade, man. Like 400,000. I'm willing to bet 200,000 on that bet. And this information you don't get nowhere else. I mean, I've traded in different rooms. I tried different. You don't get that data, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, man, I really want to take it. The stock was trading at 40. Earnings came out, and today it closed at. Let's take a look here. No. It closed at $32.95. The guy that bet 400,000 made net profit of like 800 grand, 24 hours. And I thought about taking it, right? And I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna chill. And the reason I go back to I should have never like hung it up or said that I was gonna do it because I lost the dice rolling. Like I lost the cojones, right, to take that type of risk.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I lost it, right? Like I don't want to take that type of risk no more because it's a high risk.
Yeah.
Had I followed, the methodology that I had, it's like, hey, well, this guy's willing to bet 400,000. I'm willing to bet, 150. 150 would have been 600,000 overnight. Is gross net would probably been like 300,000-400,000, right. And that's how you make that account, right? That's how we got to that 2.5. Because in March, I still had some pretty big losses in other stocks, but there were so. I mean, I don't want to say minimal because I know there was. I'm pretty sure there were 6-figure losses in there, but the big ones offset the small ones, right? And like it was beautiful. And even to this day, man, like there is cheaters in the market. Like someone always knows before the earnings come out. Before earnings comes out,
it's not a level playing field. No, people know. Yeah, you can see it. You can see the footprints, man.
It's not like it's. I think it was just the other day. The stock AY, unusual call options that Jesus flagged is like, hey, this is unusual for the stock. 4 days later, looking to get bought out.
Yeah.
Everything Forex is like, dude, like and when you think about it in size, when you start doing this and you bet 200,000, but you buy time with it, like Lucci, preaches, buy time with it, you can't lose. It's hard to lose. I mean, you can. It's hard to lose. But it's there, man. The money is there.
Lucci, I remember one of the first things that Lucci, when I was talking to him about like his journey and how he I was like, how did you think that you could make this much money, that you could do this, coming from, because he didn't grow up with traders around him. He wasn't like, oh yeah, I see people doing this, I'm gonna do this. And he was like, I just knew, he was like, I thought about the markets as like a river. There was so much money flowing through there. He was like, all I have to do is just get a bucket. And I was like, that's actually an incredible way to think about it. He's like, I just need to get my bucket. There's so much money out there. I just need like a little bucket to get my piece. And that, for whatever reason, that was the framework that worked for him to believe in himself and get to where he needed to go. I mean, it sounds like for you, like you obviously have been on this like wild ride, and now I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, are you starting to like, you feel like you're starting to settle into like, okay, now this is going to be my approach, this is going to be my strategy, like it's not so like blinding now, it's not like you're like, oh, this is all new, I'm just kind of doing crazy shit. You're like, all right, now I'm going to start kind of getting into more of a rhythm? Or do you feel out of that rhythm and you're like, no, I got to get my legs back underneath me?
No, I got to get my legs back I need to get my legs back underneath me because, I started getting them, after I took, because we have to keep in mind, right? Like I still took $800,000 loss. At the end of the day, the losses hurt more than the wins. The wins, I don't feel as good when I win. It's kind of like, I feel like this is what I am supposed to do, right? Like when you do something that you're supposed to do, it don't feel good, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'm supposed to make this amount of money. I'm supposed to, because I hold myself to a certain degree. So where the wins don't feel as good. So when I lose, I'm like, I wasn't supposed to lose. Mm-hmm. Based on what the methodology that I'm using, based on, the things I look at before I place a bet, I wasn't supposed to lose there. But I lost because I did something wrong. So the $700,000 loss I took in Tesla and Facebook still sting a little bit. And last week we started getting our foot back. We started getting our groove back in, right? We shorted like Broadcom and some other semis, um, and we probably made 400,000 back of that, of what we lost, of the
Right.
700,000, 800,000. But then we took again. I took Qualcomm into earnings. I took a short without looking at the trade alert that Jesus posted and things of that nature. And we went right back to where we were at, the beginning of April, right? So no, we still have to get back into that groove, and trusting the data is right, right?
Hmm.
Kind of example, fraud. The data was there, what wasn't there was me,
Mm.
right? I wasn't there because of the losses I took, or I don't want to see further into the losses.
Hmm.
Um, so we have to work to get back into that groove. Is the data is still there? That hasn't changed. The market is there, hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed is our perception of whether we're going to win or lose. Um,
Yeah. I mean, do
and once we
you?
get that, we're back.
Well,
We're so back.
you said something interesting. You were like, I expect to win. I hold myself to a high standard. Like, where do you feel like that came from? Has that always been the way you've been in your life? Is that something that your family really cultivated in you? Like,
No,
where's
no.
that come
So,
from?
so I come from humble beginnings. Like I come from a place where the odds are that you're not getting out of the city, right?
Mm.
But before I was rich, I knew I was rich, right? Me and my brother actually grew up together. It's when we were very young. We were like 16 or so. We lived on our own and whatnot. But like when I was dead ass broke, I knew I was rich, or I knew I would be rich one day, right? And when I was working,
You just knew. You were just like,
I
this is
knew.
gonna happen for me.
I
Yeah.
never worried. I've never in my life worried. Like I probably didn't have money to eat, or I didn't have money to pump a full tank of gas. But I never really worried about that stuff because like I know that my break is coming. It's sooner or later, and I'm going to be rich. And when I was working straight out of high school, I was working 70 hours a week at Goodwill and some fabric, some factory doing fabric for drying machines. And I was working 70 hours. Like I'm gonna retire by the time I'm 40. Like this
Mhm.
is cool. Like I never really worried, right? I never really
Yeah.
worried about it. I was like, I always told myself I'm gonna retire by the time I'm 40, and that's that. And that's how me and my brother always looked at it. Like we'll be okay. Like, and we didn't have shit. Like we were dead ass broke. Like we probably had like $10 in our bank account.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I always gone about life. Like we're gonna be all right. Like this is part of the process to where I know where I belong, and not in the terms of being cocky or not, is like based on what I do on a daily basis. This is where I'm gonna land. And I'm 30 now, and I always told myself I'm gonna retire by the age of 40. Shit, last month I was
I was
like,
you're ahead of schedule, man. Good for you. Way ahead
I
of
was like,
schedule.
I'm out. But then I'm like, what am I gonna do, man? Because at the end of the day, I still have a mortgage company, right? I still have employees that depend that I come in every single day. So if it wasn't for my employees, I'd be in Maui. I'd be retired, but I have to be here because I can't just say, "Hey, you guys are all fired. I'm
Right.
gonna go enjoy my life. See ya." Like, I need to show up for that, right? Can't just leave.
I got a question for you then. I
Yeah.
mean, you're running a business, you have your own company, you have employees and stuff like that. How do you compare the stresses? Because Lucha and I talk about this a lot. It's like business owners and trading. Like, how do you compare the experience of running a business, the ups and downs of that, the stress of that, versus trading, where obviously there's risk on, but it's on you, right? It's not affecting as many other people. I don't know. How do you? Does that feel similar to you, or are you like, no, they're just completely
No,
different?
it's more stressful running a business 100% because that's actually really where like day trading is cool, man. But like I make a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I'm a mortgage guy, and that's kind of what I like to do. That's what I'm very good. If you think I'm good at day trading or whatever, when it comes to mortgages, I'm even better at that. Yeah. So like when it comes to mortgages, man, hit me up. You guys watching this, you need mortgages, hit
I
me
was gonna,
up.
I was gonna say free pub right here, free
Free
publicity, man.
pub.
Yeah.
So the stresses of running a business is you have to what you stress about is like in a downturn. Like 2022, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Half of the first Q1, Q2 of 2022 was great. We did fabulous. A bunch of money's being printed. If you thought the gains in the stock market were great, You should have seen mortgages in 2020, 2021. It's unreal.
Yeah.
You couldn't lose. So 2022 rolled around, and it's more stressful to have to fire people or give
Mm.
people pay cuts because of the market. Because I could lose 200,000 in the stock market, and I'll be okay. Like, sure, we'll be fine. But if you tell me that I need to go fire 5 people because of the market, that's really stressful, because you're not only affecting those individuals, but those individuals pay other people. They take care of their families, right? They take care of their kids. They take care of whatever you name it. And it's not like they can just go get a job at a different mortgage company right now. Some of them can, and that's by luck, because right now you can't. That's really stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
The
know,
responsibility you
losing,
feel towards other people like that. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, because you're responsible for their, at the end of the day, it's they show up every day to work for you, and every
Yep.
day you got to show up and work for them too. Just because you're the boss or just because you're not the owner doesn't mean shit. It just
Yep.
means you pay the bills. That's all it
Yep.
means.
Yep. You're the one. Yeah. Amen to that. Very
Yeah.
similar mentalities, man. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for day trading, you have a big loss, you take a deep breather, you walk, you think about it for 3 days, and next week you forgot about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is.
I mean, it does feel like you have, I mean, not to say that like the losses didn't affect you or anything like that. I mean, I know there was stress. You said you weren't sleeping a lot and stuff like that. But in talking to you, there is kind of like a lightness to all this to you. Like it doesn't feel like you're carrying this so like heavily. I mean, do you kind of feel that where you're just like, yo, this in some ways this is kind of points on the board. Like, let's not take this too seriously. Life, more important things in life, like you're not white knuckling it. Or are you like, no, I might come across as pretty chill, but I'm actually like dead serious about this.
So I'll tell you what stress, because I've been through a lot, like in life. I'll tell you what stress is. Stress is going to the DMV to get your driver license, and you can't get it because you don't have a guardian that can sign off on you getting a license.
Yeah.
So you can't get to work. That's stress. Stress is, not being able to drive down the street without fearing you're going to get arrested because you have no driver license. That's stress. Stress, losing 200,000, that's a blessing. You know what I mean? Like if you can lose 200,000 and go on about your day, you're gifted. You're blessed, man. So not having money to eat or not knowing where you're gonna live in 2 months, that's stress. Losing 300, 400, 500,000 in the course of 48 hours is, I mean, it carries some stress, but that in retrospect to what I've gone through in life, that's a blessing. Oh, you have the ability to lose 500,000 and go to sleep tonight? That's a blessing. That's a blessing. Like, you know what I mean? It is still stressful, but it's a different level of stress. It's not as serious as not knowing if you're going to have money to eat in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to speak too much, but yeah, that's stress.
I mean,
I like to think it, when I say I wasn't sleeping, right, Charlie, I think a lot of us deal with it is my size was too big.
Yeah.
Every tick mattered, right? $1 up is $20,000. That's the we weren't sleeping because of the losses. We were not sleeping because am I going to get paid on my options that I bought at $1 and they should trade at $4? But when I wake up and the market bell rings, they're only $3. What the fuck? And and that's when I learned about IV, right? Because I didn't know about.
Yeah, I love it.
I didn't learn about IV till like my 15 trade. I was like, Ranchero, we're gonna make 7 times the money. He said, no, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you're lucky if you get paid on these. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it dropped $10. He said, have you ever heard of what IV crush is? I'm like, no. He said, learn about it.
I love Raj, dude. I love it.
And when he gets going too, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I like to get triggered.
I was gonna say, so sometimes getting Raj a little cranky it's a gift. It feeds the soul a little bit to get him ranting about something.
Look, man, I'll tell you what about Ranchero though. Like, if you're a serious trader and you're serious about the shit that you're talking, and you're like a a master course student, that motherfucker DMs you back. You're
Yeah.
part of other chat rooms and you try to hit up the people that run the show. You're lucky if you ever, you even get a reply. Right.
Yeah.
So when I came in here and I'm like, they reply? What? Like, and he's spitting so much game. Like if I go back into my DMs, he's telling me what to do. And once he's like, jump on the call real quick. Like, I don't know this guy. This guy's from the internet, right? Ranchero's from the internet that likes to go from San Francisco to fucking Hawaii and hates China. That's all you gotta know about Ranchero, right? And he goes like, jump on the Zoom call real quick so I can tell you how to get out of this, X, Y, and Z. And thankfully, man, Ranchero's been there a lot. Like I have to give him a lot of props, man, because I've DM'd him at 2 a.m. Hey, X, Y, and he's like, calm down. This is what you're gonna do. And so to my success that I had in March was because of Ranchero just going off the last couple months. And I was like, fuck, I'm finally gonna listen to this guy. Let's see what this guy does. And it shows me how to get out of big positions because you have slippage in big positions, especially in options, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You can't just hit sell, man. That's not that. It's not that easy. Yeah.
It's not like Facebook where you like hit market sell and there's slippage of 20 cents. You get 20 cent slippage in options, you're gonna lose a lot of fucking money. So man, that's you could rest assured we're getting sleep now.
Yeah, good. No, I mean you picked the right guy to listen to, and you're exactly right. I mean, Ranch, he's the kind of guy that if you show, I mean, and you absolutely, the only reason he was listening to you and working with you to that degree is that you obviously showed him that you're putting in the work, you care, you're coming at this, from a perspective of like not looking for handouts or anything. And he's the kind of guy who's like, if you show me you're real and you're doing this for real, like I will help you. I'm not just gonna hand out answers to somebody who could Google, what they're asking me. But yeah, he's the real deal with this stuff, man, because he's been through it.
You have individuals, right? You have individuals where like, what are you in? And I used to be that guy. Like, what are you in? Like, I'm buying what you're buying because I know you're gonna make money. And like you're blind, you blindly follow people because they seem successful, and you don't actually want to put in the work. You just want to follow, right? And I have people DM me, hey, what are you buying? What are you buying? What are you buying? And it's like, I don't know who the hell you are. 1 and 2, you're highly likely to lose if you follow me. Yep. So if you want to take that risk, here's what I'm doing, but I'm going to tell you 3 times is you're going to probably lose this money. Yeah. And in the month of March, it's been great. The month of April, I lost a step, and that's because I haven't been focused, right? I haven't been focused to the degree where someone like Ranchero is going to be like, yeah, he's focused. Or, if Ranchero knows what I've been doing in the month of April and May, he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, don't even open your fucking computer, dude. So man, I'm really appreciative of that, man. If you're watching this, Ranchero, I appreciate you, man.
It's probably surfing somewhere in Hawaii right now, but he will see this. I guarantee that he sees everything that we do. He's like the eye of Sauron. He's like always watching. I think that I don't blame you at all. I mean, I talk to so many traders who it's not strategy stuff, it's life stuff. I mean, I can't blame you at all. You just had your 4th kid, coming off a big, month like that. Like, yeah, maybe you're going to be a little distracted, So it sounds like for you, you're saying focus for me right now is getting kind of back head in the game.
The funny thing is that every time we have a kid, something good happens. Like something very, very good happens. Like me and my spouse were talking about, and I told her the after March ended, I didn't tell her how much money I lost when my son was being born, and she was like she was in pain. I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her that. I told her after. It was
By the way, babe, we lost $800,000, but keep pushing. You're doing great.
Bro, I was, I didn't tell her till like after the fact, So, when he was going to be born, she was like, something always happens like very, very good to us right before our child was born. So this kid, him and my first child because of my mortgage company, this one because of the stock market, but they're both our golden children. Oh,
dude. So what does that mean? Are you going to have like 12 kids? Like just good things keep happening. So you're just going to keep having more kids?
Is it? No more. As of today, May 10th, no more kids. No more kids. It's done. But maybe I start a hedge fund on my 5th one. Who knows?
Right. Well, dude, I mean, this is like what I wanted to do is just get an understanding of kind of like who you are, your story, like what what your journey's been like. I think you've like taken us through so much of that. I mean, I'm curious, because there's people who might see this, and say, all right, that guy had all sorts of success when he joined, this room. Maybe I'll give these guys a shot. Like, what would be your advice for somebody new coming in, to our environment, to the room with Jay, with Ranch, with these guys, with the tools we use? What would you say to somebody new coming in, how to, get started, make the most out of it?
Man, what would I tell someone that's new? It's if you're really looking for a room, an environment that people trade based on actual data and not based on a secret Discord on the back end of their subscribers, this is it, right? Because they're going to provide you the facts. They're going to provide you like someone actually bet 500,000 this company is going to go to XY by X date. You can't manipulate what happens in the level 2 or the times and sales, right? You can manipulate what someone says in a oh, this stock is going to go to 10. Well, based on what? Based on what? Because you have 5,000 shares. That's what you're saying. So if you want to trade based on data, this is the place to be. If you want to trade based on hopes and dreams and hype, this is not the chat room, because they're going to tell you to get the fuck out. Straight up, like it is what it is. Like if someone comes in here pumping some name without actual data, like flow, based on flow, it's useless. Anyone can say anything on the internet, but at the end of the day, if you can't back it up with flow, it's useless.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Like there's always cheaters in the market. Like we see it at least once every other day. Oh well, this stock went to X. It went up 10% today. I wonder why. Well, let's look at the flow from the couple of days. Well, the Jesus or the wise guys alert, which I'm sure it's the same thing, or it's an algorithm or a robot, a filter, let's say, flag there was unusual trade, and this is what it was. Did you follow it? Did you do a technical analysis when you saw that flow? What did you see what did you do when you saw that alert come over? And it's not an alert to buy or an alert to sell. It's an alert to say, hey, this is unusual for the stock. Again, going back to Frog yesterday, someone bet, $400,000 that it was going to drop $5 by the following Friday. What did it do? It dropped 7. Let's go. Let's make some money. So that's my advice is if you want to trade based on data, this is the place to be. So all data, all numbers, they don't lie.
Yeah. Word. Well, I super appreciate you taking the time. It's Friday afternoon, hopping on, man, telling the story, talking so much about yourself. Congrats on the family. Congrats on the the gains, the work you're putting in. Super appreciative of you being a part of the room and bringing the energy you bring, and looking forward to seeing some more of those numbers, man. Seeing it keep going.
We just got to get our feet back under ourselves, and we're back at it, man.
I love it.
All right, take care, Charlie.
Thanks, Ozzy. Appreciate it, man. Have a great weekend. Thanks. Later.